使徒行傳4章5到12節。我哋請蘇海山姊妹 Ada 蘇為我哋讀出經文。
第二天，猶太人的官長、長老、經學家都聚集在耶路撒冷，還有大祭司亞拿和該亞法、約翰、亞歷山大以及大祭司的家人，所有的人都在那裏。他們叫使徒都站在當中，查問說：你們憑什麼能力奉誰的名作這事？當時彼得被聖靈充滿，對他們說：民眾的領袖和長老啊，我們今天受審，如果是為了那殘疾人身上所行的善事，就是這個人怎麼會好的？那麼你們各位和以色列全民都應當知道，站在你們面前這人好了，是因拿撒勒耶穌基督的名。這位耶穌基督，你們把他釘死在十架上，神卻使他從死人中復活。這耶穌是你們建造工人所棄的石頭，成了房角的主要石頭。除了他以外，別無拯救，因為在天下人間沒有賜下別的名，我們可以靠着得救。讀經完畢。
好，今日為我哋證道嘅係毛偉權長老。我哋時間交俾偉權長老。
Thank you for the reading of the passage.
唔該晒，頭先 Ada 為我哋讀出嘅經文。
After Jesus resurrected and during Pentecost, the disciples were filled with the Holy Spirit and started to perform many different miracles.
喺耶穌復活之後，並且喺五旬節嘅期間，門徒佢哋被聖靈充滿，並且有好多唔同嘅恩賜。
And they started to heal people, and the leaders of those days, the Pharisees, they were all very jealous of this.
然之後門徒們佢哋就開始去醫治好多唔同嘅人。
And Peter became the spokesperson for the church.
而彼得呢個係成為咗教會嘅代言人啊。
As the church expanded, more and more people were being healed, and the Jewish leaders became very concerned.
隨住教會嘅擴張，好多人更多嘅人得到醫治。猶太嘅領袖佢哋變到非常之緊張，非常之擔憂。
And so they arrested Peter and John and made them appear before the Sanhedrin.
於是乎呢，佢哋捉咗彼得同埋約翰，將佢哋帶到去公議會面前。
The passage we have just read is taken from Acts chapter 4, and it tells us this incident when Peter and John were arrested.
我哋頭先所讀嘅經文係記載喺《使徒行傳》第4章裏面，係提到啱啱講述嗰件事，並且係彼得嘅回應。
If you read the verse 12 is quite easy to understand, isn't it? What Peter says, he says salvation is found in no one else, but there's no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved. Verse 12.
如果我哋頭先提到第12章關於救恩嘅話，係非常之容易理解。除了他以外，別無拯救，因為在天下人間沒有賜下別的名，我們可以靠着得救。
But the difficult part in what Peter says is actually in verse 11, the previous verse.
但係彼得佢所提到嘅第11節就比較難理解啦。
Can I ask you to?
第11節係提到，這耶穌是你們建築工人所棄的石頭，成了房角的主要石頭。
So what do we understand by this word, the cornerstone?
咁究竟呢個11節當中嘅房角石係乜嘢意思呢？
Now, if you in modern day, if you go around the country, especially in London, you see lots of these grand buildings with lovely stones at the corner.
如果我哋去到而家嘅建築，你去到倫敦啊或者其他地方，見到一啲好靚嘅建築嘅話，你會見到呢一啲咁樣嘅好靚嘅石頭。
They're normally at the corner of a large building.
通常都會喺角落頭，喺個建築物嘅角落裏邊。
And they normally just for ceremonial or maybe for symbolic purposes nowadays.
其實而家建築學裏面咧，房角石只係得翻象徵式或者儀式上嘅作用嘅啫。
Okay? It's nothing to do with the integrity of the building.
對於建築物嘅完整性係完全冇任何嘅影響嘅。
I'm not an architect, okay? But if you want to build a building, computers can do lots of things nowadays.
雖然我唔係建築學家啦，但係而家基本上你需要建造高樓大廈，其實而家嘅電腦現代科技基本上係冇問題㗎。
Okay, you can build skyscrapers and no problem at all.
你要建造一啲摩天大廈咧，係絕對輕而易舉。
Okay, and many of you from Hong Kong, you know that, those buildings don't normally collapse.
我哋好多喺香港過嚟，我哋知道其實我哋好多嘅摩天大廈，但係佢其實唔會好容易去倒塌。
Okay, but throughout history, though, the cornerstone is actually quite important bit of material.
但係其實咧，翻返去古代嘅時候咧，喺起樓嘅呢一個房角石係非常之重要㗎。
Okay, they're very, very important whenever you're making buildings.
當你去建造一個建築物嘅時候，佢係真係非常非常非常之重要。
And these cornerstones actually at the corner of a building.
呢一啲房角石正正就係喺嗰個建築物嘅角落頭嗰個位。
And it's the first stone they put on before they build the building.
其實係第一嚿石頭，當我哋起樓嘅時候係第一嚿石頭放上去嘅。
And how is it important?
咁究竟佢有幾重要呢？
Because when they start to want to build a large building, they put a stone there, and they're able to put other rocks along the way. They use it like a guide to point in a direction.
其實就係喺起樓嘅過程當中，佢放咗呢一個第一嚿嘅房角石之後咧，當佢喺個建築過程當中，其他嘅石頭就會跟住呢個房角石一路咁樣對齊而放落去啦。
Okay, so they're able to therefore point in one direction and point that direction, so that building is in good shape.
所以咧，其實佢嘅作用咧就係將所有嘅嘢喺嗰個建造嘅所有嘅石頭，用佢嚟對齊，咁所以佢個方向所有嘢都會啱啦。
Or else your building will be all different shape if you don't have a
如果唔
cornerstone.
係嘅話咧，咁呢個建築物咧裏面就會搖搖欲墜啦，就會唔夠穩陣啦。
But it's interesting though, if you have English Bibles, the word cornerstone can sometimes be translated capstone instead.
但係咧，其實好得意嘅。如果你用睇英文嘅聖經咧，有一啲翻譯咧，其實佢係會譯做頂層石嘅。
Okay, different versions of Bibles is either say cornerstone or capstone.
唔同嘅翻譯咧，佢會一係就翻譯成頂層石，一係就翻譯成房角石。
Because in the original language, it could mean either.
因為其實喺原文裏邊咧，佢可以係指頂層石，亦可以解做房角石。
Okay, the cornerstone is always the first stone you put on, and then you build around it.
房角石永遠都係起樓嘅第一塊石頭，然之後其他嘅石頭就跟住佢一路咁起。
And the capstone is actually the very last stone you put on. It's just like the top of the roof. That's the last stone you put on.
但係頂層石咧係最後一嚿石頭，就係好似你而家見到嘅，佢係最頂嗰個，係最後一塊石頭放上去嘅。
It's actually interesting to know that Jesus Christ himself is also referred to in Revelations as Alpha and Omega, first and the last, and the beginning and the end.
而正正耶穌基督佢亦都係咁樣去形容自己，就喺啟示錄第22章13節提到：我是阿拉法，是俄梅格，我是首先的，也是末後的，我是創始的，也是成終的。
So no matter if you refer to this either cornerstone or the capstone, Jesus Christ is actually both at the same time.
所以無論其實我哋講緊嘅係房角石還是係頂層石，其實耶穌基督都係任何一個都係指緊耶穌基督。
He was there before we were created.
佢係喺所有嘅創始之前，
And he'll be there at the very end of the earth.
佢亦都會係喺我哋嘅世界嘅最終嘅終結。
He is the first and he's the last.
佢係創始嘅，亦係成終嘅。
So this Jesus Christ can be a cornerstone or he can be a capstone.
所以其實耶穌基督可以話係頂層石，亦都可以被形容為房角石。
But for this moment, we'll think about just cornerstone.
咁我哋而家咧，我哋就先提到呢個房角石。
In the Old Testament times, the actual word cornerstone is referred to many times.
其實咧喺舊約嘅聖經裏邊咧，我哋提到有好多嘅時候，亦都會提到呢一個房角石嘅。
In Psalm 118, we read here about the gates of righteousness being opened, and the Lord is becoming and we enter, and this stone the builders rejected has become the capstone.
喺詩篇第118篇19至23節提到：請你們為我打開正義的門，我要進去稱謝耶和華。這是耶和華的門，義人才可以進去。我要稱謝你，因為你應允了我，也成了我的拯救。建築工人所棄的石頭，成了房角的主要石頭。這是耶和華作的，在我們眼中看為稀奇。
In ancient times and even nowadays, people would go to quarries to dig for rocks and stones.
喺古代嘅時候，甚至而家咧嘅採石場咧，其實嗰啲建築工人咧，佢哋都會去採石場去揀選嗰啲建築用嘅石頭。
Okay, they want to look for good stones so that they can build buildings.
咁佢哋當然係想去揀一啲最好嘅石頭，愛嚟建築用噶啦。
But they also look for a nice stone which they can use as a cornerstone.
咁當然佢哋都會去揀一啲更加合適嘅，係愛嚟用做房角石。
So they look carefully at all the stones they have quarried and see which one is the best.
所以佢哋就會好仔細去檢查去揀一最合適嘅。
And they find one maybe that says, oh, this stone's lovely. This is it. We're going to use this to build this building we're going to make.
可能佢哋就話：哇，呢一個好正啊！呢個就好合適，愛嚟可以做我哋起樓用嘅。
But the thing is this, is that all other stones that are not picked will then be just used for other purposes.
咁但係被棄嘅冇被揀作用房角石嘅石頭，其實佢哋都會被用喺其他用途上高嘅。
Jesus Christ himself is a beautiful stone.
耶穌基督佢自己本身係一個好精美、好精緻嘅合適嘅完美嘅石頭。
But the builders rejected him.
但係建築工人卻係放棄唔選擇佢。
And Jesus Christ himself actually mentioned this psalm whenever he was speaking to the Pharisees.
而耶穌基督亦都曾經喺詩篇裏邊第118篇裏邊有提及到。
And in Matthew chapter 21, Jesus Christ referred to that psalm 118.
咁亦都係喺118喺馬太福音第21章42節到46節提到。
Yeah, and Jesus Christ said that psalm that you often read, it actually refers to me.
咁耶穌基督佢當其時就係話：你哋所讀嘅詩篇，其實係講緊係我啊，係指緊嘅係我自己。
Also in another part of the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16.
亦都係喺以賽亞書第28章第16節有提到。所以主耶穌這樣説：看啊，我在錫安放置一塊石頭，是試驗過的石頭，是穩固的基石，寶貴的房角石，信靠的人必不着急。
God has prepared Jesus Christ as a precious cornerstone.
天父佢將耶穌基督為我哋預備成一個寶貴嘅房角石。
And anyone who trusts in him will never be dismayed.
所有相信佢嘅人，信靠佢嘅人，必不着急。
But often this cornerstone is actually says that it become a foundation.
而喺呢度講到房角石，佢係被稱為，亦都係被認為係穩固嘅基石根基。
Now, even if you're not an architect, you know what a foundation is nowadays, don't you?
咁就算講真，如果我哋而家唔係建築師啦，咁大家都知道其實根基係指啲咩啦？
Okay, basically nowadays foundation is just like a bit of ground. You make sure the ground is all concrete so they can build buildings on it.
根基咧其實指成個建築物佢嘅建築基礎嚟㗎，通常就係保證嗰個建築物佢唔會下沉或者倒塌。
Okay, it's normally at ground level, and in Hong Kong especially, you've got big machines that sort of bangs the floor, make sure you put lots of concrete on.
通常咧係建喺個地下面，好似我哋香港，我哋會好熟悉嘅，知道我哋要打樁，令到嗰個根基好穩固，咁就會令到嗰啲建築物唔會倒塌。
But in the old days, they didn't have concrete and they didn't have skyscrapers.
但係喺古代嘅時候咧，冇混凝土，即係冇石屎，亦都冇高樓大廈。
So in a sense, the ground was good enough normally.
咁所以即係話咧，其實當其時個地下就已經係夠穩固啦。
But the cornerstone is the key foundation because everything else is built along reference to it.
但係房角石仍然係，所以房角石就非常之重要啦。因為房角石放咗房角石之後，其他嘅建築嘅石頭就係跟住佢一路嘅咁樣去起啦。
And that's why it says the cornerstone is a sure foundation.
所以喺呢度喺聖經裏面就會話房角石其實就係嗰個最係穩固嘅基石。
Now, after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ, Peter fully understood what Jesus Christ was saying.
喺耶穌受難同埋復活之後，彼得充分明白耶穌佢喺詩篇呢度所帶出嘅意義。
Okay, it actually speaks about people's rejection of him,
呢一篇嘅經文其實講緊人們對耶穌基督嘅拒絕，
and it speaks about the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ,
亦都睇到耶穌基督嘅死亡同埋復活，
and it's a fulfillment of the Old Testament.
並且係佢對舊約嘅應驗。
And that's why whenever we read these verses at the start, that's why the Pharisees and the Sadducees, so that's why the Sanhedrin understood what Peter was saying.
所以當其時彼得佢向公議會佢哋去引用呢一段經文嘅時候，佢哋其實係好了解彼得佢所暗示嘅意思。
Because what Peter is saying is this, Jesus is the promised Messiah, but they have rejected him.
因為當其時其實所提到嘅就係耶穌就係應許嘅彌賽亞，但係佢哋卻拒絕咗耶穌。
But what does it mean to you and me today?
咁究竟對於你同我今天有咩意義呢？
Well, Paul the Apostle picked this up in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19 to 20.
彼得佢喺以弗所書第2章19至20節提到，這樣看來，你們不再是外人和客旅，而是與聖徒一同作國民，是神家裏的人了。並且建造在使徒和先知的根基上，基督耶穌自己就是奠基石。
That word foreigners and aliens is actually a nice word, and not a nice word, it's an interesting word, isn't it? Foreigners and aliens.
呢一度所提到嘅外人或者係客旅，其實係都幾有趣嘅，係咪呢？
Because that can refer to many of us here today.
因為其實可以係講緊好多，其實可以講緊我哋自己添啊。
Because we were once in a different country, and we were foreigners to this country, but now we've been brought in because we have been accepted here.
因為可能我哋係嚟自唔同嘅地方，但係我哋亦都聚集埋一齊。咁但係我哋亦都係大家都係喺基督裏邊去合一。
It's good to be able to belong to a group of people, to belong to a country, isn't it?
呢個其實好好嘅就係大家聚集喺同一個國家裏邊，係咪咧？
Once we did not belong to Jesus Christ, but now we belong to Jesus Christ.
我哋本身並唔係喺神國嘅裏面，但係我哋而家藉住耶穌基督，我哋大家就喺佢嘅國裏面，大家成為神家裏面嘅人。
But it's good to know that we are all in Jesus Christ.
但係係好嘅，知道我哋大家都係喺神家裏面一齊做國民。
But whenever Paul says this, there's actually two good points we can pick from it.
其實喺呢一個以弗所書裏邊所提到嘅，我哋係當中有一啲嘅學習。
First of all of us individually together are part of one big building.
其實咧，我哋喺呢一度咧，就好似大家聚集埋一齊，好似一個好大嘅一個建築物裏面。
And each one of you is just like a brick in that building.
而我哋每一個咧，就好似每一個人就好似每一個磚頭咁樣。
How good do you fit into that building?
究竟你有幾合適喺呢一個建築物裏面呢？
Now, if you go anywhere, if you go anywhere, see a nice building, you admire, don't you? Wow, lovely big building.
就算你去到睇到一啲好靚嘅建築物都好啦。
Okay, and you see all the lovely walls, all the bricks, and so on.
跟住你見到啲好靚嘅牆、好靚嘅磚頭。
But then you suddenly notice there's a wee brick slightly off.
跟住可能你會見到，咦，有一嚿磚頭有少少瑕疵或者歪咗。
Yeah, and you notice that more than the rest of the building, don't you?
咁你就會咦，好令到你嘅突然之間你個注意力就放咗喺嗰度啦。
That's the thing with the Church of Jesus Christ. The Church of Jesus Christ is like that, a building with lots of bricks.
耶穌基督嘅教會就好似咁樣啦。
Okay, lots of bricks.
有好多嘅磚頭。
But sometimes we maybe are not as good as we ought to be.
但係可能有時候我哋未必係好似我哋應該咁合適嘅。
Sometimes we sort of tilt slightly as a brick in the
可
wall.
能我哋有時候會歪歪地，可能有時候有啲瑕疵。
And just like in the building, people will notice.
但係亦都就係好似喺個建築物裏邊，其實大家係會知道嘅，係會有人睇見嘅。
That's why you as a Christian, you have to be careful how you as a witness for Jesus Christ.
所以其實我哋作為基督徒嘅話，我哋好需要好小心。
People normally don't notice the very good things we do,
通常咧，大家未必會知道你做咗啲咩嘅好事，
but they'll notice whenever you do one bad thing.
但係如果你做咗一樣唔好嘅嘢，大家係會睇到嘅，
So
好容易睇到。
as a Christian, be careful how you behave, how you witness as that brick in the building of Jesus Christ.
所以作為基督徒嘅話，大家係要好小心去作嗰個，就好似嗰個建築物嘅嗰一嚿唔合適嘅有瑕疵嘅磚頭咁樣。
We'll go to Matthew 21:43.
或者我哋先睇翻回憶翻耶穌喺馬太福音第21章43到44節先啦。因此我告訴你們，神的國要從你們那裏取去，賜給那結果子的外族人。誰跌在這石頭上，就必摔碎；這石頭掉在誰的身上，就必把他壓得粉碎。
Jesus Christ was referring to the leaders and to the Israel people that if you reject me, one day I'm going to offer it to other people.
耶穌基督喺呢度提到，就係對當其時嘅以色列人同埋當其時嘅領袖同佢哋講：如果你唔接受我嘅話，咁有一天我就會將呢一個救恩，我會將佢傳俾其他人。
And in a sense, you and I have benefited from that because salvation is offered to all of us as well, apart from the Jewish people.
而喺呢度正正就係指緊你同我，其實就係能夠喺當中，我哋作為外邦人都能夠有呢一個福分喺上帝嘅國嘅裏面。
But at the same time, it also tells us that we have to be careful when we live as Christians.
咁但係同時間亦都提醒我哋需要好小心，我哋作為基督徒，
Because it tells us that we need to be careful how we live our lives.
因為呢一個係提醒我哋要好小心點樣去過我哋嘅日子，過我哋嘅生活。
We will look at 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 10 to
我
15.
哋首先睇下哥林多前書第3章10至15節先啦。
We won't read the whole verse, but it tells us in verse 11, no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Christ Jesus. Verse 11.
我哋唔睇晒所有嘅經文，但係我哋睇第11節，因為除了那已經立好的根基以外，沒有人能立別的根基，那根基就是耶穌基督。
So as Christians, we continue to build on Jesus Christ, and build on Jesus Christ as the foundation.
所以其實我哋作為基督徒，我哋喺耶穌身上，我哋去建立我哋自己嘅生命。
Earlier on, earlier on during the breaking of bread, I mentioned that I became a Christian 43 years ago, exactly today.
頭先我哋喺擘餅嘅時候，我亦都有提到，我其實今天已經係信主43年啦。
Okay. In the past 43 years, I have to ask myself, what have I done, with my salvation? How have I served the Lord?
過去43年，其實喺度都問自己，究竟我喺我生命當中，我點樣去為主作工？我為主做咗啲乜嘢呢？
Because in verse 12, it tells us, if any man builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stone, hair, straw, his work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. Verse 12 and 13.
因為喺哥林多前書第3章第12到13節提到，如果有人用金銀寶石草木禾秸在這根基上建造，各人的工程將來必要顯露，因為那日子必把它顯明出來，有火要把它顯露出來，那火要考驗各人的工程是怎樣的。
And I hope and pray that since the 6th of August 1980, I have built using gold and using silver and costly stones in my Christian service.
我希望喺80年嘅8月6號嗰日開始，我嘅生命，我為主所作嘅係用金銀寶石呢一啲喺基督嘅根基上面去建造，不斷去建造。
And I hope that you too, maybe you haven't been a Christian as long as me, okay? You're all very young compared to me. But maybe you also need to ask yourself, what have I built since I believe Jesus Christ?
在座各位，其實可能你未必有我信主咁耐，有43年，但因為大家在座都後生啦。咁但係我希望你都係同樣嘅去問自己，究竟喺你嘅生命裏邊，你究竟為上帝獻上嘅所做嘅係乜嘢呢？
Because Jesus Christ will test it against the fire one day.
因為耶穌基督有一天佢會用火去試驗我哋。
So can I encourage you as a Christian to build on your faith from today onwards if you haven't done it yet.
所以如果你仍然未係嘅時候，我可唔可以叫你去鼓勵你，由今天開始就係喺呢一個耶穌基督嘅基礎上高，用金用銀去喺佢當中去用信心去建立起嚟咧。
Earlier on as well, during the breaking of bread, I said we take off the bread and cup because we look forward to him coming back one day to collect us.
頭先我喺擘餅嘅時候，領聖餐嘅時候，亦都有提到，有一天我哋會期待耶穌基督將會再嚟。
So this building of all the bricks of all the Christians, one day the last brick will be put on and Jesus Christ will come back.
所以頭先我提到嗰個建築物，就形容我哋好似每一個嘅磚頭嘅嗰一個建築物，有一天耶穌基督佢翻嚟嘅時候，佢就會作為最後嘅嗰一個磚頭放喺呢個建築物裏面。
And whilst we wait for that last brick, last person to accept Christ, we continue on to live our lives as Christians.
而我哋正喺度等緊耶穌基督佢翻嚟，將佢最後嗰一嚿嘅磚頭放上去呢個建築物嘅時候，呢一段日子我哋就要好好嘅去活著做我哋基督徒嘅生命。
We need to continue to use Jesus Christ as a foundation in our lives.
我哋要繼續嘅以耶穌基督作為我哋生命嘅根基，
And use him as a cornerstone.
亦都要讓佢喺我哋生命當中作為我哋嘅房角石。
This building started on the day Jesus Christ came as a baby. He went to the cross and he died and resurrected.
呢一個建築物係由一開始用耶穌基督佢作為嘅房角石，用第一塊嘅石頭開始建造，然之後佢就受苦，然後復活。
And the church is being built today. The church of Christian fellowship of us as Christians is continuing to be built.
然後教會就喺佢嘅呢個基礎上高不斷嘅去被建立。
And one day Jesus Christ will come back as a final capstone to put a finish to the church of Jesus Christ.
而耶穌基督最後就會以最後嘅嗰一塊石頭嗰個頂層石放喺呢個建築物嘅當中而翻嚟。
And then he will take us all up with him to heaven and we can live forever.
然後佢就會將我哋都提到天上去到呢一個天堂上高，同佢一齊去生活。
I'm not too sure if all of you are here, Christians here today.
我唔知道大家今天在座嘅係咪每一個都係基督徒啦？
Maybe if you're not a Christian, you may say, well, this is just a story, maybe.
如果你唔係基督徒嘅話，可能你會覺得呢個只不過係一個古仔嚟啫。
Okay, but this is real.
但係呢個係真實嘅喎。
Jesus Christ did come as a baby.
耶穌基督佢真係降世為人，佢由 BB 開始去出世。
He also died on the cross. It's a fact.
佢被釘在十字架上，亦都係事實。
And he resurrected as a fact.
佢復活，亦都係一個事實。
And the church continue to grow and expand is a fact.
然後喺地上嘅教會不斷嘅擴大、不斷嘅擴張，亦都係事實。
And there are many things described in the Bibles which are facts as well.
而喺聖經裏面所講嘅每一句説話，亦都係事實，亦都係真實嘅。
And if those are facts, then Jesus Christ coming back one day is also a fact.
如果頭先所講嘅所有嘢都係真實嘅話，其實耶穌基督佢翻嚟，亦都係一個事實，亦都係真實嘅。
And for you to be able to go up to heaven, you need to accept that you are born as a sinner.
如果你將來你想係上到天家嘅時候，首先你要承認自己一個罪人。
If you look at the world today, there's so many different beliefs and so on.
如果你睇下現今嘅社會，你會見到有好多唔同嘅信仰。
And people say this is right, this is wrong, and so on.
好多人話呢個係啱嘅，嗰個係唔啱嘅。
Things that were not right, not right many years ago, nowadays people say it's right now.
有啲嘢其實幾十年前大家話嗰個係錯嘅，但係而家又話係啱嘅。
And this doesn't seem to be a standard.
好似冇一個統一嘅標準咁樣。
But the Bible has always been consistent.
但係聖經從來都係一致嘅。
Sin is sin.
罪就係罪。
Wrong is wrong.
錯嘅就係錯嘅。
And all of us are born in sin.
而我哋每一個都係有原罪嘅。
And there's going to be a judgment for each one of us one day.
而我哋每一個人將來都會受到審判。
And if you want to avoid that judgment, then, then confess that you're a sinner.
如果將來你想避免呢一個受到審判，首先你第一件事係需要承認你係一個罪人，
And accept Jesus Christ as Lord.
並且要承認耶穌基督作為你嘅救主。
We don't know when Jesus Christ is going to come back,
我哋唔知道耶穌基督幾時會再翻嚟，
but it'll be soon.
但係將會好快。
And whenever he comes back, it'll be too late to change your mind and accept Jesus Christ.
但係如果當耶穌基督翻嚟之後，你先至回心轉意或回轉嘅時候，當其時就會太遲啦。
So that's why we tell people, believe Jesus Christ today.
所以我哋好多時都係話，今天我希望你會接受耶穌基督作為你嘅救主，
Okay, take this as a fact.
因為呢一個係，亦都希望你知道呢一個係事實。
But as a Christian, continue to live your life for him.
而作為基督徒，我希望你係為住耶穌基督而活，
Be a lovely brick on that wall of the Church of Jesus Christ.
希望你可以作為教會裡面嘅嗰一個好靚嘅嗰個磚頭，
And continue to follow Jesus Christ and use him as your guide in your life.
然後繼續嘅係跟住主耶穌嘅腳步去作為你喺生命裏面嘅指引。
Thank you.
唔該晒。